लिए डेट लगा सकता है। जी
चलिए, इस जानकारी के लिए आपका शुक्रिया। National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang are set to hold the 23rd meeting of the Special Representatives in Beijing. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, the two special representatives will discuss the management of peace and tranquility in the border areas and explore a fair, reasonable, and mutually acceptable solution to the boundary question. Ahead of this crucial meet, China has stated that it is ready to work with India to implement important common understandings between the leaders of the two countries and work to bring bilateral relations back on track as soon as possible. China has emphasized that both countries need to respect each other's core interests and major concerns, strengthen mutual trust through dialogue and communication, and properly settle differences with sincerity and good faith. This statement comes a mere 2 months after the milestone disengagement at the line of actual control. Remember, China dismantled its military positions in October 2024 in Depsang and Demchok. Now, crucial talks will be held in Beijing, a first such since December 2019. But the big question arises, can we really trust China on the border? Meanwhile, let's take a look at an update as far as the line of actual control is concerned. All right, in fact, I'm going to go over to the big screen and explain what exactly is going on. Where do we stand? And this is the Y junction, which is popularly known in the echelons between these two countries. Okay, so these are in fact the Chinese positions which have been dismantled at this point in time. And this is exactly the Y junction that India and China have been in fact crossing swords over. So these are the new Chinese positions which have been pushed further back into the Chinese occupied area. And the likely current Indian patrol routes are going to be something of this sort. So obviously there has been an up in terms of where China and India stand at this point in time. But let us not forget that there has been a big history, the huge history between these two countries as far as trust issues are concerned. Major General Sudhakar Ji, geopolitical expert with us on the program. General Sudhakar Ji, I always say that when it comes to China, anything you say or anything you do has to be taken with a pinch of salt. If you remember 1962, sir, we were not even born at that point in time. There were a number of bilateral talks between these two countries, and the Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai slogan was at its zenith, but still, China turned around and attacked India. Obviously, India is not what it used to be in 1962, but China and their disposition perhaps has not graduated as much as India would prefer to.
Thank you for getting me to your show. You are discussing a very serious issue. Not many people understand what you and me are talking and we discuss. There are very far and few people who will be able to comprehend. Firstly, theoretically, it's difficult to understand, and those who don't have any ground experience will not be able to relate. So now let me come to your first question. I was born before 1962, so you can grant me that. Now, the point regarding trust. Since I have served a substantial part of my service in the army along the northern border, I can say with a lot of conviction that why only China? Anyone for that matter. There is a teaching in the army, respect all, suspect all, and inspect all. But when it comes to China, you must suspect. There is something brewing up. China as a country cannot be trusted. You take it as the high point and the low point. So having said that, yet there is a spectrum through which there can be give and take, because mindful of the fact where China is today, its economy is 5.5 times larger than ours, technology much larger than where we stand today, infrastructure far, far greater and better organized, and network is spread all over its territory. And historically, they have a practice of hegemonistic kind of a foreign relationship, expansionism, and they carry out three warfare strategy, they carry out a host of other activities the way they have been doing it in South China Sea. So when it comes to the issue with regard to our NSA, the senior representative being there, and they are talking about the boundary, underscore this point, boundaries are very important, because unless the end state is correct, we may not be able to go anywhere nearby. Today, if India is planning with a high-end objective of 30 trillion US dollar economy by 2047 or earlier than that, my strong recommendation to the government of India should be to resolve the boundary between the western and the northern neighbors as early as possible, because lots of the sunk cost, the cost which cannot be seen, is actually going absolutely unjustified in a ad hoc manner, in an emergency manner. So therefore, if we can settle the border, nothing. But how do you settle the border with so many disputes? Now you talked about the Y junction. The Y junction which you are referring to, towards own side, where you are standing facing the screen, towards our own side, there is a place called Butsu or Butse, Burtac. It's 7.5 kilometers away from the point where the Chinese had occupied. They were obstructing or stopping our patrols to go east of that point towards China side. Now, fortunately, a big milestone has been achieved as far as the diplomacy and dialogue goes. Chinese have pulled back. Depsang, at least we can reach up to the patrolling points 10, 11, 11 alpha, 12, and 13. My 1 point recommendation to Government of India is that patrolling point 1 to 65 spread over 832 kilometers in eastern Ladakh, which was promulgated by the China Study Group in 1997. If China can come closer to these patrolling points from their side, what is stopping us in making our assets closer to these patrolling points? Why do our patrols have to go on foot from the debussing point or go on, let's say, mules or yaks or whatever? Why can't we have our infrastructure developed? Our negotiation should be so structured so that our end state should be clear, and we should settle for good and establish our assets and living accommodation at the patrolling point from 1 to 65, wherever they have been demarcated in the year 1997. Obviously, goes without saying, it has been done with mutual consultation with China.
General Sudhakarji, do you think there is a catch to this softness of stance by China?
Obviously, Vinay.
What would that catch be, sir?
The catch is that in 2018 to 2023, I'm forgetting the exact date. There is a study group in the think tank in China. They gave out a paper. It is a very deeply researched document. They have said if China's aim is to rejuvenate Middle Kingdom by 2049 or earlier than that, if China wants to celebrate its centenary of People's Liberation Army by 2027, if China wants to capture blah, 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 many things, that letter of 2013, Taiwan is included in that. Then if China wants to attain the status of global power by 2049 or earlier, it cannot achieve any of these without taking India.
All right. Major Mohammad Ali Shah is also with us on the show. Major Mohammad Ali Shah, what is your opinion of how China is behaving at this point in time? Is it too good to be true? And do you think that India can, let its guard down when it comes to dealing with our proverbial adversary?
I totally agree with General Sudhakarji. He's got first-hand knowledge over there. He has spent time there on ground. In fact, he has commanded his formations there around the Indo-Tibet border. In fact, he has wide exposure of that. So regarding China, yes, at the moment, China's stance is a bit soft, and we have to give peace a chance. It's difficult to trust China because they have never honored any of our pacts, any of our treaties, any of our arrangements, any of our arrangement with them, be it the Panchsheel Pact, be it any arrangement, they have never honored that. So here, again, it is difficult to say, but it's well worth it. It's well worth thinking, okay, let's give it a chance. NSA, Mr. Ajit Doval goes to China, and of course with his talk with Wang, and he's going to be talking about the LCA. I don't think it's a long-term talk that's going to be having about what's going to happen in the future with India-China relationship. It is going to, it's my perception, it's going to be a very short-term talk about the current situation in China, in India border at the LSE, the entire 3,488 kilometer stretch. So it's a perception. There is no demarcated line over there. And many often they are Chinese patrols and Indian patrols. They come and they come face to face. They've been hand fights, fist fights. They have fought with bars, with sticks. And this is our land, no, it's our land on map. On my map it shows this, no, on my map it shows this. and this will go on until there is actually a demarcated line. Where there is no line, so obviously there is, like as Robert Frost once said, good fences make good neighbors, but here there is no fence, here there is no line. I'll give a very small example, Vineet, for all our viewers to understand, those who do not follow it deeply as well, for a common person to understand. In our houses where we live, we have our neighbors, right? Some of us have very good relationship with our neighbors. Some of us do not have very good relationship with our neighbors. Now, have you noticed when we have good relationship with our neighbors, there is a demarcated line, there's a boundary, there's a fence, there's a wall, there's a boundary wall, and they're most welcome to come home, have tea, whenever. Yes, please come. But again, when there is no demarcated line on the property, this is my parking, nobody that's you'll fight, no, it's my parking. Again, we'll end up fighting with each other because there's no demarcation there. And that's exactly what's happening here right now with China, because there's no demarcation. So now I think baat se to baat aage badhti hai. When we talk diplomacy, most certainly, and as you read out in the beginning, China has said they are willing to come out and talk to India regarding their, in fact, the Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson, Lin Jian, he has mentioned that they are prepared to come forward and talk with India, because I think the dialogue is the only way forward, not guns and bullets and bombs and missiles. So I am quite hopeful. Let's give it a chance and see how it all goes, Vineet.